Good afternoon. It is Thursday, August 26th, 2021, and here's what we're looking at. We got the overnight highs and lows in yellow, and then we got the measured move down here, which prices hit that measured move a few times, then broke out and then failed. And then we came back to test the overnight lows a couple times, once, twice. And you know what? That's probably an aggressive entry right there that you could take on that test again of those overnight lows. But then we break out of that, and that fails. But unfortunately, guys, not a lot of good setups today, and you really had to be patient and maybe even aggressive. You know, there's an entry in here too. We'll get to that later, but there's some entries I like there. Okay, so we're going to take a look at the trades for the day that I marked. Starting in the overnight, we had this move down. So the bias was down, but we got this strong reversal pattern with a first. Actually, that's the failed second entry, so we make a new low. First failed second entry, but I don't know, I just really like this, even though I had congestion marked, especially when prices started responding to this level of support. I really like that, so I did take it. I do think it's aggressive, and all you do, I think you scalp out. You don't really get a runner. So, and I probably should have called it a day. Probably should have called it a day there. We'll get into that later. But then, yeah, prices just move back and forth in this congestion. I had this congestion marked from these two bars highs and these two bars lows. And it looked like that midline made sense, so I kept it there. We have this breakout, but no setup. We form some micro congestion up here. And then we get a breakout. And that's an excellent entry, in my opinion, on this breakout. It ticks one tick higher, and then it's an engulfing bar to the downside back into congestion. I think that's a great entry. And unfortunately here we don't get, it's not the high of the swing, so we can't enter here. Here, I'll make this bigger. And I like this entry. Looks like we tested these lows, first entry, second entry. It does kind of look like it might be a trend down, so I could see why. And this overshoot, you know, usually it might go the other way, that far and the other way. So it's aggressive, but I think here too, maybe you want to enter long here. I don't know if you would have gotten the scalp at that point though. And I'd be concerned because it comes back in towards the midline. 88, 80, yeah, so you would have gotten a scalp here too. But I think I would have entered on a limit order on this one. But yeah, and then the floor just falls out from beneath this thing. A big move down straight to the measured move. So we hit that measured move, we bounce, form a leg up, and then we form this downward channel. And not a lot of good entries in here. I mean, this is a lower high, but you wouldn't have that trend line drawn yet, I don't think. First entry, you could look at this as a double top, first entry. So if you look at it like that, first entry, second, failed second entry short, then you might look at this. But then the trend line, I don't know if you would have the trend line drawn like that at that point. So let me mark that as aggressive, because I was only able to draw that trend line afterward. It's also a second entry short, just a bad signal bar for a second entry short. And we got this overshoot too, so we don't know if prices will. But the overshoot could be because this is a break or something. I don't know. But anyway, we go beyond the measured move and we make a higher low. We just haven't had much of a convincing break yet, and this EMA is pointed down, so I don't think you should go long here. And then we don't get a setup here for a second entry short, and then you get this lower high, and I think you know, it's tough because you're going into these lows, but this trend line hasn't had a convincing break, and it's a pretty strong trend. So if you want to be aggressive there. And then here it just looks like, you know, we tested these levels a lot, and then it finally shoots down. We get this higher low. I don't think I would go long there, but maybe if you're a good chart reader, maybe this is a good setup. I'm not too sure. But clearly a lot of shorts got trapped there, had to exit their trade. And unfortunately, I don't see a way to enter this to the long side. We bounce at the overnight lows right here, get a lower high, but then we just, that kind of just, we get some congestion here. And I don't see any way to enter this. You might enter here. I was thinking about that. Because that looks like a double test of these overnight lows, which really got tested here too. So it's like a triple test. And maybe go short on that engulfing bar. That's 16 ticks. So like you would see how intense that's pushing down. So I feel like I'd probably be okay with that. And then we break up into this downward channel, and unfortunately there's just not a lot of good entries in here. But look, these are all, it's like that strong trend. Up here it looks like that strong trend that Mac always talks about, these small bars, small corrections. We come down here, I think I had my channel drawn originally like this, so we come down to the bottom of the channel, bounce, and this is just a lower high, unfortunately. But it looks like a healthy trend. So, you know, with the small bars, small corrections. So I think maybe you just have to take that. And then here I was looking at this as congestion. Afterward, I drew my highs up here, but before I had them down here. And that was like a failed breakout. And it's also a second entry short. So I think that's a good entry. You probably could go short right there too. That's a little more aggressive though, I feel like, because we found some support down here, so we don't know if prices are going to bounce. That's how I felt anyway. And at that point it looks like these are the highs, whereas before it looked like these were the highs. So yeah, then we start to make this leg down, and you get a first failed second entry short. I like that. It is going down into these, the lows of this trend line though. Another reason to think about this trade is because this congestion, or this break of the channel forming into congestion. So sometimes that'll lead to congestion that breaks. This is an overshoot, excuse me. Overshoot sometimes will lead to the break. First failed second entry. Yeah, and this leads to another overshoot. Now we bounce. I don't think you can enter here. It is a second entry off the trend line, but we've had this overshoot, 2 overshoots. So I don't think it's strategic to enter there. Lower high. Again, I don't think you can enter there. But then when we hit this level and we test that price again, I think you can go short there, and that ends up being a good move. And that's all I saw for today. So now let's take a look at the disastrous day I had trading. And I think it's just because I'm now back at work, and I'm just taking, I'm not watching the chart, but I'm taking entries. So it's like you need to be watching it to understand what prices and have a feel for what prices are doing. And I just don't have the feel. So I am okay with this entry right here. This failure, it does look like it's working off a trend line. It's aggressive though, because this is congestive here. But it gets you a nice price. Only thing I don't like is I missed the move. Okay, I hesitated. I was like, I don't like, I'm not confident in it. So it hit a scalper's profit, and then I dropped a limit order and waited for it to come back, and I still scalped out. But I don't think that's good practice. I don't think you should be doing that much. So that's how I feel about that trade. Here, I just traded without knowing context today. So here we got a bounce at the measured move, another bounce at the measured move, and I just entered here, and I went long. And this is just no context. Maybe I saw the overshoot of this channel, and I don't know, but just it's a first entry as well, so just really silly. I'm like at work taking entries, and it's just stupid. Not a good idea. Wait, what happened here? I went short here. I went short one tick below this bar. Like, why would I do that? I just don't know why I would go short. And you can see it filled me out, stopped me out. And then I went long here on like a failed second entry or something, but it didn't even tick lower. I probably took a first entry on this engulfing bar. Ugh, just terrible, terrible. 1, 2, 3 entries. Ugh. I went long here, it looks like. Oh no, I went short here. Yeah, just over trading, and not, you can't trade when you don't know what's happening. Okay, so I do like this entry. Like I said, it looked like a breakout of congestion and a second entry short. And that congestion isn't too bad. We only got this one doji. So, and that entry ended up working. So, not a bad entry at all. I see this failed second entry long, and this is a strong trend down. But I think first entry, failed second entry long is what I was looking at here. But that's so far from the EMA. You got to wait. And I was telling myself to too. But, you know, it's just easy to listen to the devil when you're doing this stuff. I told myself to wait for a second entry short. And at the like EMA or key entry point, but I just couldn't resist. And if look, we make a double bottom, first entry, second entry short at the key entry point, that would have worked. I didn't mark it because we had to overshoot, 2 overshoots of this channel, but that would have worked. So you just got to follow the rules, and that'll improve your bottom line. And that's all I took for today. So I hope everyone had a good day. I hope you're not making the same mistakes as me. And I'll be back tomorrow. So everyone have a good day.